All right.
I'm all set, sir.
Meeting come to order and ask Kevin to call the roll, please.
Chair, Harry Meyer.
Yes.
Vice Chair, Gary Delvo.
Here.
Jim Bloomer has to be excused. Alderman Joe Moore.
Present.
Melanie Palmer has to be excused. Matt Schuler has to be excused. Tom Weber.
Here.
Ask for a motion then to approve the agenda as outlined.
So moved. Second.
Joe and Gary, second. And those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Unfinished business, consideration with possible action on communication from October 18, 2016 of the Common Council by Alderman Nicholson to have the city renegotiate the East Town Mall project. Recommended receive and place on file. Motion by Tom, second by Joe. Those in favor say aye. Opposed, carried. New business, consideration of possible action on a request by Alderman Dwayne and Stoyer to approve a term sheet with Lexington Realty International LLC for East Town Mall redevelopment at 2350 East Mason Street, tax parcel 2126-7 and 2350, 2390 East Mason Street, tax parcel 211263. You want to comment?
Sure. I outlined in the memo, we've been here before, we've talked about this before. What we have here is the term sheet we've looked at before for significant redevelopment of East Town Mall. Council, as mentioned in the memo, disposed of this original motion on October 18th. The communication you had before was to go back and renegotiate. Our initial attempts kind of found out that the ship had sailed and that they weren't interested, and talked with them a little more. They have been very firm in the terms, and that the terms that we presented before them today, or that we've been before, we're not negotiating any further. We have been able, I guess, at least to be able to bring them back to the table, some deadlines or things that we felt may have passed, that they've been able to work on their end, that they would still be interested in negotiating, or, I'm sorry, interested in pursuing this project, but under the same terms. With that, I've had some discussions with some council members, and in particular, Alderman Dwayne is here, Alderman Stoyer is here, and they can comment specifically. In terms of just where the project's at and why this is a good deal, and why it's a good deal for the city, and more importantly, why it's a good deal for the residents of that area. So we feel confident in bringing it back to the Redevelopment Authority. The terms are all the same, that you send it back up to council, that we can get this moved forward and start working on this particular project. So with that, you've seen this term sheet before. Nothing's changed except for the Scribner's error about correcting the values in front. If they answer any questions, otherwise just like to go forward on this.
Earlier, it seemed like there was some confusion about the 110% of the debt service.
Correct.
Could you go over that, please?
Sure. So the 110% of the debt service, what we would do, the terms here, $2 million up front, and then up to $1 million on the back end pay-go.
Yeah.
The $2 million, the city will borrow that. I just calculated we would borrow that at 3.5 interest for 20 years to put into the project. Roughly, that equates all in over the 20 years to total payments of about $2.7 million. So what we would do is take that $2.7 million, times it by 110%.
Yes.
So just over $3 million. And then instead of taking 20 payments at $185,000, we take 20 payments at closer to about $200,000. So what that does is that the developer will guarantee, making the debt service payment, so that way, for some reason, if the increment that's generated doesn't get there, they will still pay as if it were there. Again, part of the incentive on the back end, they want to generate that increment because then they get to a point where they're eligible to receive additional assistance. But that 110% is to protect the city. And they, like I said before, they've been willing to do that.
Right.
And the exact amount will depend on when we borrow and how we borrow, but
Sure.
they're agreeable to those terms.
Very critical. Dawn, have you done any background check on these folks? Are they good financially?
This is our initial step, is to actually approve the term sheet
Okay.
first, and then we
All right.
will be gathering that
All right.
information.
Based on some,
Yes.
we haven't dug into their personal financials, but we
right.
have looked at some of the other projects that they've done in
Yes.
some other communities, and they've all checked out. So that's, to Don's point, I think once, the city says go ahead, then we start digging in and really getting
Okay.
the numbers to make sure it's a solid deal.
And I think I had possibly brought this up in the past, we're also going to look at the LLC members as well, right?
Right, we get personal financial statements as well.
As far as I'm concerned, it was a good deal before, and it's a good deal now, so I make a motion to approve.
Second?
I would wonder whether Alderman Dwayne has any comments or?
Yeah, I do, thank you. Yeah, when we asked to renegotiate, I thought that, let's look into this. Alderman Nicholson made that request. I've worked many hours with, and talked many conversations with Dr. Vonk on how to approach them and what we would do and how to approach it. What I wanted the city and the council to know, and the people out there, is exactly what they're paying for, how they're paying for it, and if there's demolition costs. What if the, part of it's, if the library is presented, we'll put so much money in for that. I don't even know if I can say the numbers. Can I, Kevin, or?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've talked about in terms of the budget, or what was asked, is that of the $2 million up front, $1 million would go into demolition, and $1 million would go to the outfitting of the library.
Yeah.
Again, this is a term sheet. If
Yep.
those things would change, I know the library is still a piece that has to be solidified, but if that for some reason would change, a development agreement is coming back to this board before we move forward.
Yes.
Right, and the best thing about it is, I wanted to make sure that we knew where the money was going. We calculated what they would need. There's 3 parts to it, the pay-for-go. It's 100%, 110% payback. This is, I've lived in that area for over 30 years, and that mall has had trouble since I've been there. I mean, if you go in there, it's empty. You're gonna hear a lot of people like to walk in it, but I did go check in my, I get a lot of calls. Gary, you're in my neighborhood. The calls, and the neighbors have been walking to my house. And with this happening, this is really gonna put some energy into the east side. You look at what Cubs is bringing, and you bring these front stores, walk-in stores, these boxes, as you wanna call them, into that east side. There's enough room on that parking lot. I'm talking with Dr. Vonk, what else might be able to go in there, because it is such a large area. And you can really, if you want to go back and look what Oshkosh does, a lot of these mini malls, they're fine, but not all of them are successful anymore. But these big boxes like in Oshkosh, where you come in and out, and they're just, once you get 2 or 3 of these big boxes in there, it brings in 4 or 5 and then 6. And we're not getting anything like that in there. You don't get the Chili's that people ask for. You don't get the TGIFs. You don't get those smaller ones because you don't have the bigger ones. And, I agreed to look back and see what we can do. I think this shows exactly what we're paying for. I believe that the east side really needs this. It's been a long time coming. I know that there's going to be some negativeness on this, saying it's too much. And I just, with the 100%, 110% payback, and it puts it all on them. They are the ones that got to succeed on this, or that even the back end doesn't work. So they're going to do everything they can to make this project work. And it's just going to energize Green Bay. It's going to energize the east side. I was for this project from the beginning. I agreed to hold off to see what we can do. But a lot of times, we put a lot of money out there, and we don't know what it's used for. Here, it spells it out. And so, that's just my comments.
Thanks, Tom. Any other questions from?
I just, will we see the budget that's submitted, just as an advisory item, or?
Yes, in terms of, for the development agreement, or for the, yes, for the development
Yeah, for
agreement,
their budget.
they're required to submit a budget that's
Right.
supposed to be approved by the
made
IDA.
available, or
Correct,
It's going to be sent to us on that.
yes.
Excuse me, gentlemen, I have another meeting, and then I got one at 3, so I just wanted to explain why I brought it back and stuff like that, so if you don't mind, I gotta go. But because I gotta get back here for 3.
Why don't you go to work, Tom?
Okay, thanks. See you guys.
Order the guide?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I tell you, I read a book, about 30 years ago by a gentleman named Walter Pitkin. It was called A Short Introduction to the History of Human Stupidity. And it was, the introduction was this thick. And it kind of went through the whole history of mankind in various countries and showed the folly of what goes on. And I tell you, this would be a new chapter in that book. It would be an update to that. I have a hard time understanding how your committee can kind of sit here with very little discussion most of the time and just rubber stamp things, and on it goes. I mean, essentially, the city's getting into the real estate business. Is this going to be our standard from here on in? anything that's in trouble, we buy it and help bail it out. I mean, essentially, when you're paying $3 million, I realize $1 million of it's, or the back end of it's on pay-go, but you're essentially buying the property and handing it over to them. I tell you, well, people want things to happen. The marketplace is the marketplace. And if these people can't buy this property for $3.8 million, which is about, we kind of calculated, it would be about 10-12% of what it would cost to build it new. And that doesn't include the value of the land. That's just the building. And they can't make a go of it, buying it for 10% and then investing some money to try to do something with it. If they can't make a go of it, it means that the property is overpriced yet. Now, I don't know what the situation of the owners, the present owners are. I don't know if it's in a real estate investment trust. I don't know if it's somebody bought it cheap. I don't know, was it in bankruptcy or something? Was it foreclosed on?
There was a foreclosure of this property, what, in January of this past year? Where it went through the process, the real estate holding firm ended up purchasing it back, and the current transaction is an arm's length transaction, but there is within the recent history a foreclosure or distressed
Okay.
transaction.
Well, it's distressed, so people buy distressed properties. There's all kinds of people that do it. And of course, the value is the value. Why we would add $3 million of taxpayers' money to try to make it go, and then throw this little nod in about getting 10% more on the payback. I mean, it's way outside the scope of what any city should be doing with taxpayers' money. I think this is a bad deal, extremely bad deal. I wouldn't even believe it if I wasn't hearing it with my own ears. But you guys can go play this game that somehow it's that important. Well, is this the standard we're going to set for every property that has valuation problems that we're going to step in? Or is it just certain ones we're going to do it for? No, I got to believe that there's a market value. Three quarters of it, 60% of the mall is under lease, etc. Money's coming in. There's a cash flow enough to pay their taxes. Well, it's up to the free enterprise system. It's up to the business people of the community or from wherever to come in. This idea that the city should play patsy to the extent that it would give $3 million on a $3.8 million purchase is outside the scope of any rational person. So you guys can go do this, do whatever you want, but I think there's going to be hell to pay with the public. And you can play the part of the buffoon and try to, oh, how important it is to the community. Hey, the U-Haul people came in and took over the Kmart building. Did they come in here and have their hand out to you? That was empty for a long time. But the market is the market. Somebody came and bought it and did something with it. These guys come from out of town, from New Jersey, and what is their little X on to show that this is a city that just hands out? $3 million on a $3.8 million purchase? Absurd. Absurd. And certainly, you may get the rest of the council to go along, because it seems that the usual players play along with whatever comes down, no matter how absurd it is. But this has got to be the most absurd one I've ever seen. And that's all I got to say. I would not approve this. And I'm disappointed that I very seldom see any talk amongst you people. It's not businesslike. It's not even slightly businesslike. It's contemptible.
Dr. Von, $6 million is the hard construction cost, $3.8 million is the purchase, so it's closer to a $10 million investment that we're putting $3 million on, is that right?
Sure, and just to maybe clarify.
So about 30, a little over 30% is what
Right.
the public assistance is?
And with that, we would write into the development agreement what's been discussed here, we specify for what expenses are TID eligible. And in this case, it's for demolition and build out of the library. So you know, the money, again, I mean, there's flows that go with the transaction, but the flows here are not to help purchase the property. The 2 million is for two specific things, and that is the demolition and the library build out. But yes, you know, to your point, in terms of the hard construction costs, I said 6 is probably going to be higher, probably closer to 8. So we're probably talking about a $10, $12 million investment when all in.
But we're still capped at 3,
Correct,
and that's written in.
correct.
And it could be less than.
So less than 30%.
Correct, and again, that pay-go only comes on the back end, it only comes after the debt service is paid off, or it's generating increment up and above. You know, that value, I think we talked before, is about $204,000 a year. So if it's making property taxes above $204,000 a year, that's when we split the pay-go.
I think just a comment too on it. I think this actually fits very nicely in the 1974 legislation, which allowed municipalities to create TIF districts. And this council is Redevelopment Authority. And redevelopment is not the same as greenfield development. It's much more difficult. And I think this fits very well with what our responsibility is to communities. It's been a struggling area over there for an awful long time. And I think this hopefully gives it a great boost. So I think that's the accusation that we don't discuss things. We discuss things quite a bit, sometimes very privately between one another, but our public comments, and we do consider, we take the responsibility very seriously.
Barry, there's 2 other elders that want to talk.
Oh, great. Do 2 more on there.
Oh, okay.
Hi,
Hi.
Alderwoman Dorf. So I just wanted to thank the committee for being willing to look at this again. I voted for it last time. I think being the District 1 alderperson, this is going to serve my area. Just as the Festival Food Project is serving the District 1 area, I'm very excited about the East Town Mall project. And again, I just want to thank you for being willing to come together and to look at this one more time.
Thank you.
Hello, committee. Alderman Steuer, thank you. I was one of the folks that had voted against it initially, and I think the bottom line for me is that I want to see something happen with East Town Mall. You know, I've lived here 34 years in this city, and that's always been a somewhat underutilized or underappreciated area, and I really feel that this is something that needs to come forward. I mean, we're competing with Bellevue and De Pere and Ashwaubenon and all these outlying areas. The city of Green Bay can only grow in one way, to the east. There's no other way we can grow. And with that being said, you're going to see more and more subdivisions, more and more things happening out on the east side. If we don't do something, we're going to lose that area. I did a little research, had a few folks, a few emails, and Lexington Realty International, I didn't know a whole lot about them. I had to look up some things, and I think as many of us do or should do, we should really, do a little research and take a look at some things. So I kind of peeked at a few things, and there are over 20 different malls that this group has been involved in over the years. Some may be more successful than others. I didn't have the time to look at each one individually. There's one in Sheboygan called the Memorial Mall that they have worked on for some time. So they do have a bit of a track record. I think if it was, a firm that came in and just, by the way, we don't have much of a track record, but they do have a track record. So I'm emboldened by that. 25-30%, the pay to go, the library issue, I think that was one thing that was a bit of an issue for me last time, and trying to figure that all out. The fact that it's a term sheet, we can always revisit it at another time when it comes to that point. The fact that 2 of the 3 alders were against it in that area, I feel that now that Alder Dwayne is on board now, it's in his area. We many times we look at other alders in the district and find out what are your special projects, what are your special needs, and I think it's important that we keep an open mind to that. So even though I'm on the west side and I don't shop at East Town a lot, this is very important, I feel. This will benefit not only that area, but it will benefit the city at large. So with that being said, I support that, and I hope that we can work it all out and do the best we can with it.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you, Alderman.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion second then for approval of the term sheet that was
I
outlined?
have
Those
two
in
more
favor
questions,
say aye.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, we're done with it?
Yeah.
What has the assessor said about this property?
Go ahead.
It's assessed at $11.2 million right now. There's been an offer for 3.8, but that really has nothing to do with the assessor. And of course, I saw this committee want to guarantee that the assessor would put it down low enough so that we create an increment.
Sure. So by statute, the assessor cannot guarantee a certain amount. I think we've had some discussions with the assessor. I'm just going to reflect on Dawn if she can confirm. I think we realize, look, it's not going to come in at 3.8 just because that's the purchase price. In the same regard, it's probably also not going to be around 11 million because if there's going to be demolition and other activities going on, and just to look at, the useful structure of that, it's going to be somewhere in between. And I think we've calculated that or looked at some assumptions of where that value may come in. I think we also, reduce our risk in terms of the incremental gap by having the developer guarantee the debt service payment. So if for some reason that it would come in high and there's not that much of an increment, they're still going to guarantee paying the debt service payment. They probably won't be able to recoup PAYGO on the back end because they might not generate enough. With that, there's still the PAYGO incentive out there that, we've estimated the new product will come in probably around $15 million. It's very feasible with an outlot or two that we could push that, again, higher towards 18, 19, $20 million.
Speculation, speculation, speculation. Now the city of Green Bay is in the speculation business with real estate.
That's nothing new, Guy.
Nothing new? Well, I've never seen it quite this way.
Oh, yeah. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I had questions. When I went to the library board meeting, their last meeting when we discussed this, and it did not look like that was anywhere near a goal. I would say if that has a 10% chance of happening, I'd be very surprised. And unless Mr. Vonk has some other report on that.
I think, given where the library board's at, they saw that it wasn't very favorable with council, so I don't know how that influenced their decision. I think we also have some alders, including yourself, who are on the county board, and look at that option. My understanding is the library is looking at a few options for the east side branch right now. They have not committed to anything. I think, RDA and council giving their approval to a term sheet sends some signals of confidence, and we'll continue to work to see if this option works out. I think this board has made it very clear that if the library is not going to be part of it, I think, Mr. Bluebrick has pointed this out, then what is the other alternative? I think for the developers, not just for us, our money in is to go to a public facility, but for the developers, they feel like the library is a very important part of it. So I think they're going to try and exhaust all avenues to try and get the library on board. If they're not, again, this is a term sheet, then coming back as part of the development agreement, there'll be something in there, either a reduction in the funds that go in, or some other use of funds or some other types of tenants. I feel very confident that if it's not going to be the library, that there are a lot of other entities out there looking for space, and also entities that provide public goods and public services that we could partner with to make that work. I think the library is the preferred option in terms of, I think it makes sense for a lot of different reasons, which we've discussed here before. But I also feel very confident that if it's not the library, we will get something else there.
Speculation, 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 and that last speech was like putting lipstick on the pig.
Okay.
That is not going to happen.
Well, that's not our problem.
I can't guarantee that, but.
So are you going to call for a vote?
I tell you, the city is speculating on real estate, setting an ever more dangerous precedent, because this has gone deeper than others. We're 30%, up to 30% investor with no return on investment, except maybe we got a tax base, and maybe we got some retailers that want to come and sell things to the 55,000 people that live in that area. I think it's a great bargain out there, and I think the marketplace should be left to work. How long has it been in foreclosure? A very short period of time. There are people that will scoop it up, and the city should not be risking this money. It's totally risky business.
Okay. Well, we thank you for your comments, Alderman Zima. We still have a motion and a second. Call for a vote. Aye.
Ask the question. All those in favor?
Oh, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carried.
Don't you ask for the...
Anything else for the agenda?
Is there any opposed? Is there any opposed?
No opposition.
Okay.
That it, Kevin?
That is it. This will be reported to a special city council meeting held tomorrow at 5:15 p.m.
Meeting adjourned. Kevin, whatever happened to that hotel next to the Red Fire Restaurant?
These guys are so disconnected.
They were parking.